Okay, here we go. Welcome everyone. Let me just change one more thing
You
to
did it.
the next installment. We did it to the next installment of Let's Talk Horses. My name is Sarah Watt. You probably know that already. And my very, 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 very special guest on this episode is my big brother, Brendon Watt. Thank you for being here.
Oh, you are so welcome.
So it's called Let's Talk Horses, my podcast, because I love talking about horses. And basically, it's just really an opportunity to get together with people and talk about how horses have created change in their lives. And I've been so blown away because to begin with, I'd just do it by myself and I'd try and get people to come on and ask me questions and stuff. And and then someone's like, why don't you have special guests on? Because there's so many people in my life that have had this relationship, this change, this phenomenal thing with horses, and you're definitely one of them. So the first question I always ask my guests is like, what was that moment for you? Like, if there was one, or like a time when you were like, wow, horses, like where they came into your life and you saw the difference that they were and what they could bring to you.
Well, I tell you, when I first had my trial by fire with learning how to ride was in Costa Rica, and we were at this resort doing some class there, and I was with Simone at the time, and she had this horse that was kind of a little bit, a little bit of work, and she was like, she didn't want to ride him, and I was like, I'll ride him, and I got on this horse, and I hadn't really ridden, maybe a couple of times, and Gary Douglas was on that ride too, and he was screaming at me. And I think a lot of us who we know, who are friends, have learned how to ride that way. And sit back, not like that. And I was like, and I learned pretty quickly what not to do, and I just fell in love with it, and that was it. Basically, I kept riding that horse for a few years, and then Gary started giving me these other horses that in the beginning, like I remember when he gave me Invasaur, which is the horse that I gave you, a year ago or something. And I remember that he said, look, I'm going to put you on this horse tomorrow. And I was like, what? And I did not sleep. I literally stayed up all night. I was pacing. I was freaking out. I was thinking, I'm going to die, all this stuff. And I had so much shit on it. And I got on this horse. It was hard work, but it taught me so much. And I've had that throughout throughout probably the last 10 years riding horses. It would, each and every time that I get on a different horse, I would learn so much more.
Yeah, and I've got so many directions I want to go in, but the first thing I want to ask you about is that feeling, because I think a lot of people get that before they ride a horse, and it's whether it's their own horse that they've ridden a lot of times, whether it's a new horse that they're getting on, whether they're trying something new on their horse, and there's that, like, whatever, the butterflies in the stomach, the fear, the thing that we think is fear, but even the evening before you first rode Invasaur, like, what was that really? Like, what is that horses do to us in that way?
I would say take you out of the area that you've created as your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I think it's more of an awareness of excitement rather than fear, which is one of the things we do. We misidentify excitement as fear.
Yeah.
And if I looked back at that, like if I actually looked at that moment and picked it apart, I would see the excitement in it, but I'd also know my life was about to change.
Yeah.
And that's been, one of the things that Gary said forever was, he said, everything that I learned from a horse. And I was always like, what? But if you look, like if I look back at that, I could tell you so many other areas of my life where I was doing exactly the same thing, trying to maintain comfort, trying to not change, trying to have control. And that's the other thing with horses, is you can't ride a horse from control and expect results. So that was a huge thing also. And then, and then getting on him the next day, it just melted my world in a way. I was just like, wow, like this beautiful creature actually desires to take care of me. That's a whole other level of receiving too, because receiving something that truly desires to take care of you without the need of something returned attached so foreign to me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, with people, it's usually, well, I'll take care of you if you take care of me, or I'll do this for you if you do that for me. And it's all transactional. With a horse, it's not that at all.
Yeah, and I mean, even the definition of caring or the definition of to take care of, like we've seen it as this thing, exactly as you said, like a transactional thing, or you're going to make me feel comfortable, you're going to make everything all right for me. But the times that horses have taken care of me the most is when they've pushed me well beyond feeling comfortable, as you were saying, into
Yeah.
this space of like, and so what is that? Like what is true? Like maybe just talk a little bit more about that. What is caring from that place? What is taking care of and caring for someone or something from that?
Well, I would say a big part of it has to do with receiving,
Yeah.
like, and actually being willing to be present in the moment with, you know, with the horse, or even, you know, if it's not with a horse, with your life, you know, with whatever's going on, and showing up in it with no projection and expectation of what it should be or what it can be or what it won't be, or, you know, what's going to happen. It's like actually showing up and being in question.
Yeah.
And then the caring, like the caring for yourself is also allowing the world around you to show you where you have these places in your world that you stop that, where you stop yourself from receiving it and not going to judgment. You know, because one of the things, one of the things I learned about myself is I would make a lot of choices that were the easy choices. Judgment's one of them. Like if we look at judgment, it's easy to go to judgment. Most people will go to it and then go, I don't like judging myself. Well, maybe you do, you know, and I know for me that I did because it was easier. It's easier to judge than it is to be present and receive. And a horse will show you, man, they will show you that energetically in a way that you can't get away from.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I love so much because I also weave a lot into this podcast about the conscious horse, conscious rider classes, which is obviously a class within Access, like it's a branch of Access consciousness, and really something that I, talk so much about because I never in my wildest dreams thought that I could grow up and have a life of teaching and using horses in a way like this, where you get to really use them as a facilitator of consciousness, and they're there
Yep.
and they facilitate in a way that nothing else does because they're big and they're nonverbal and they do things so differently to everyone else. And what you've talked about is like everything that they've shown me I can apply to every part of my life. Like and people out there might be like, but why would I go to a horse class, or what can horses, horses will teach me horse things, but how much actually they teach you life things.
Oh, totally. And that class, I've been to a few of those classes. We did the facilitator training in Texas last year, and it's undeniable each time I go to that classes where you can see what you become aware of with the horses and in that class in every area of your life. Like you can look at leadership, business, you could look at parenting, you could look at relationships and the way that we treat relationships. Um, you could basically look at every area of your life and look at one of the things that becomes very obvious is how much control we do. And once again, that doesn't work with a horse. I remember this thing that Cody did at that CF training. Cody's the guy that runs the ranch in Texas, and he was to bridle two, I think it was two mares, and it took hours, hours to get them to trust him enough to actually put the bridle on them. And I watched and watched and watched. He did not get impatient. He just allowed the horse to learn to trust him. And I was like, holy shit. Like I could feel in my world where I would have been pushing at it and pushing at it and pushing at it and trying to control it and doing all of these things. And watching him, it was like this different awareness of what relaxation creates.
Yeah. And just how they don't do time. Like time to them means nothing. If you're like, I'm
No.
going to go and bridle my horse and go for a ride, I've got 2 hours. The moment you have that, the horse is going to be like, ha ha ha. Like, you got two
Yeah, right.
hours? Dude, it's going to take you,
Yep.
like, yeah. And just where you spoke about the judgment thing, the control thing. And I don't know if there's one of those things you want to like dip into a little bit more, but it's almost like everything that we think creates something for us. And you talked about judgment and how we were like, I hate judgment. I never want to judge myself or anyone else again, but we fucking choose it in every moment of every day. So there must be something about it that we love. And I like that you said it was the ease of it because I'd never looked at it that way. But I mean, the thing I love about horses is judgment. They doesn't exist. They don't know what it is. Time, don't know what that is. Control, don't know what that is. Like, is there anything you want to say about like where you've been with horses and they've shown you that it's possible to really not have those things as such a big part of our lives, of our everyday choices?
Um, I'll tell you about a time a couple of years ago. I had just started with my journey of sobriety, and I was struggling. Like I was really struggling. And one of the things that I chose to do was I would drive out to the ranch every day and learn. I had a stallion at the time, and I still was quite standoffish with him. I had a lot of points of view about a stallion and what it takes to ride a stallion and being around a stallion. And so I would go out there and I would saddle him on my own and I would work with him and stuff. And I remember the day that I actually did it all and rode him on my own. There was no one else around. And I went out there and I was kind of like just nervous in my world and thinking I couldn't do it. And I had all of these thoughts, and he was responding to all of my thoughts. He was responding to show me what that was creating, which again, pick that apart, could show you what that was creating in my life. The world around me was showing up like that, and the horse was showing up like that to show me a picture of the world around me. And I got out there and I was, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes into the ride, and I was actually coming back. And there was a bunch of mares in this paddock, and he started freaking out. And I'd have to turn him around and try and calm him down. And they got to a point where I wanted to give up. Like I truly just thought, I can't do this and I want to give up. And man, it makes me want to cry thinking about it, because there was so many things running through my head where I was like, okay, I'll get off him and I'll call someone and and I was like, and I just was like, I just asked him to help me. And it was so interesting because he was like, okay. And we walked straight past the thing and home. And it was one of those moments, and especially on this journey, this recent journey of mine, that it was just like, okay, I can do this. And so like, I say that because if you ask the horse, but also if you ask the world around you to contribute,
Yeah.
then what else is possible, with that? And it was just, man, I got back and I was just like, oh, thank you. Like I was fucking freaking out. It was great.
Yeah. But that level of vulnerability too, like we're never taught to actually ask anyone to take care of us. Like, especially you're in a situation where you're on top of this, 500-600 kilogram animal that's losing his shit because you're going mentally crazy. He's picking up on that and seeing the mares and just being a stallion, bees what he bees.
Yeah.
No one would go to the place of like ask that creature to take care of you. Like, it's not a level of vulnerability we're ever shown to have with anything, let alone with ourselves.
Well, the thing that we're shown is to avoid anything that doesn't match what we've decided should be. And that's a big part. So, because for me, throughout my life, I would do that. Like I would get to a situation like that and I would quit, and but not necessarily quit the situation, quit myself.
Yeah.
And I'd give up on me. And so with that, like I could see again where I'd do that in my life and where I'd avoid what was beyond it rather than going through it. And for me, like one of the big things with what I had to look at with addiction was if I wasn't willing to go through it, then it would always be there to get me.
Yep.
And it would always be bigger than me. But take that with any area of your life. You know, we try and find the easy way around things, or we try and find the comfortable way rather than being present with it and going, okay, so what is this? And then what am I avoiding? Oh,
Yep.
I'm avoiding being that different. I'm avoiding being that uncomfortable. I'm avoiding, whatever that is, and then dealing with that.
Yep. And so, what is addiction? Like, what is it? Because, what you talk about, and there's obvious things, but even when you speak about this choice that we continuously make to abandon ourselves or to choose that comfortable, like, is that a form of addiction in itself? Like, where we, like, what is addiction really? Is, I guess, is my question.
Well, as from a broad sense, anything that you use to take you away from being present, and then so you could look at if everyone's addicted to something pretty much, you could be addicted to judgment, you could be addicted to food, you could be addicted to whatever that is. But for me, the mine with chemical dependency, like with something like alcoholism, it's also there's you use it as a way to take yourself away from it, but it's also something that is set up in your world in a way that everything because let me say it this way. I was actually having a conversation with Gary Douglas once and looking at alcoholism, because the way alcoholism works is there's an allergy in your body. So you have one drink and then it sets off this craving in your body and you can't stop. And he was talking to me about being allergic to bell peppers. He was like, I can't eat bell peppers. And I was like, yeah, but you don't eat one bell pepper and then don't want to stop eating fucking bell peppers. And he's like, yeah, but I don't have the programming to support it. And when he said that, I went, holy shit, because see, with addiction, if you look back throughout your life, how much of what you've been programmed with supports that addiction?
Yeah.
Like if you look at addiction to judgment, for example, how much judgment did you have throughout your life to support your addiction to judgment? And so it's from that broader sense, it's the willingness just to show up, recognize when it's there, recognize when you don't want to be present, and then going beyond that. Okay, what am I avoiding here?
Yeah. And I mean, circling it back to horses, like, because, I also get not everyone out there might have the opportunity to go and ride a horse, and saddle it up and have this time with them. But like to invite people to, I don't know, wherever possible, to maybe ask for something like that to show up in your life, where you can be around this creature, or maybe even the energy of horses, to ask for more people like that to show up in your life, where it's truly this space of like this creature, this animal that's there to purely just be and to have your back.
Well, I would say also you touched on a thing there where you said a lot of people might not be able to get to a horse and do that. I would say look at the areas of your life that you have that point of view. Like, oh, well, other people can do it, but I can't.
Cool. Yep.
Because you've already eliminated it. So, and I think we can all relate to that, rather than go, okay, what's it going to take for me to actually get to ride a horse? What's it going to take for me to have something different with this? Like actually be in question and recognize where you have those areas where you've already come to conclusion that you can't have it.
That's great. So let's circle it to that direction, because now I'd love to ask you, how did you get horses into your life? Like, you and I grew up together. And I mean, for me, the addiction of horses in a way started from a very young age. But, I would beg mum, and we lived in a situation where we were very poor. We lived on the coast near beaches. We weren't set up to have horses in our world, but it got to a point where I made this demand, and I now have a life where I have horses everywhere, basically. So can we talk a little bit about that? Like having that space in your world of knowing the things that you want to have in your life that will bring you this, and whether it's horses or something else. And how do you create that? How did you create it?
By asking,
Yeah.
and really, like, it is that simple. Like going, okay, I'm going to have this. What's it going to take?
Yeah.
What have I got to be or do to create this and actualize this? And but also being congruent with that ask and recognizing when the things come up that that you have the points of view about that stop it.
Yeah.
And so, for me, the times throughout my life where I've had things show up with total ease is the times when I'm being me.
Yeah.
When I'm just like, oh, horses, what's it going to take for that? And it's like, and things just show up from that space.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to, like, we've got so many points of view about what creation is. When, like, if we looked at what if creation could be, ask can you actually receive? But that's not what you think it is, because most of us are asking for the things we don't actually desire, and we're also asking for the things that we've decided we can't have to prove to ourselves that we can't have them. So that's why I would say, like, it's what I love about access is that most of the shit that stops us in our lives, we have hidden from us. And anything that you have hidden from you, you can't change. And access is so different because it approaches everything energetically. So every limitation that you have is created and held together energetically, which is why because you wouldn't cognitively go, why does my life sucks? I've cognitively created it that way. Or I can't seem to create money, or I can't seem to create ease with this. Let me figure it out. It doesn't work that way. So, use the tools, check out all the stuff that we've got out there and use those tools. And yeah.
And I loved what you said actually just before. If the things in your life that have shown up with the greatest ease is when you've asked for being you. Is that what you said? When you're just being you and then you ask something in it. Yeah, I remember, and I've told this story a little bit on this podcast, but when Pregonero is my horse, one of my horses in Costa Rica, and you talk about when you first started riding Simone's horse.
Principe.
No, was it Principe? No, wasn't it?
Yep.
Principe was your horse though, wasn't he? Was he Simone?
Yeah, that was Principe. I had Principe, and then I had Invasor, and now I have Cristal.
Yeah. So, and for me, I watched all of you guys, and I used to come to Costa Rica and I'd watch all you guys go off and ride together and see you and Simone and Gary and all of the horses there. And I remember we were in a class in Venice, like one of these special classes Gary and Dane did. I think it was called The Art of Creation or something like that. And Gary went home sick, so Dane was facilitating the afternoon, and he was talking.
I remember that day.
Yeah, like if you could have anything in this world, absolutely anything, what would it be? And people were asking for like these big, huge things, and I like put my hand up, and he's like, Sarah, and I'm like, I want a horse in Costa Rica. And he's like, you can literally have anything right now, and you're asking for a fucking horse in Costa Rica. And I'm like, yep, that's the fucking one thing that I want. And it was literally like 3 weeks later, Claudia messaged me saying, hey, we found you this horse, and when you come over next, which was in a couple of months, you get to meet him, and if you want him, then you can buy him. And literally when I met him, like the day I met him, it was like this creature from another world. Like I'd never really experienced something like that. And I don't think I've ever really acknowledged that in that moment, I was just being like the crazy little horse girl again, that crazy little horse girl I've been my whole life, where I'm just like, I just want horses around me. I just need to have more horses around me. And just the ease with which that showed up for me. Yeah.
Well, that brings up something interesting as well, because if we look at that energy of, let's say there's someone in front of you right now saying you can ask for anything. Here I am, the genie in the bottle, you can ask for anything. And you're going, well, I'd like a horse in Costa Rica. What if that's actually done from the awareness of what that horse in Costa Rica is going to show you about you, that you can actually ask for beyond it as well? And so, but if we look at that, because we're all trying to look at the things we're asking for, like, oh my God, like I want $1 million and I want all this and I want all that. No, what if what you truly does? Well, let me do it this way. How many presumptive realities do we all have with all of that? which is where you have a presumption about what reality is, and then you go about creating it. What if what you truly desire is more of you? And that's going to actually show you what else you can ask for. And what I mean by that is, what if you didn't have to ask for the big things? Like, what if it wasn't just about asking for the things that everybody else tells you should have? Like, what if it was, you know what, I'd like to wake up and like myself, or I'd like this new thing to play with, or I'd like to swim in the ocean more, or you know, like whatever that is. But what if you looked at, okay, what am I actually asking for, and what have I made real about that isn't actually true for me?
Yeah, I love that so much because 100%, 100 million% of what that horse has given me over, and there were 3 years I didn't see him because of COVID. We never went to Costa Rica for years, and I would still pay every month. Every month I pay money for him to be taken care of, but there was not a moment in my life where I could imagine not having this horse in my life, because even right now I can tap into him over there in Costa Rica, the other side of the world, and perceive the contribution that he is to me. Like, to me is,
Yeah.
and then, people meet him, like Indalesio's over there at the moment, and he's like, sends me videos all the time. He's like, oh my God, Sarah, like what he contributes to him, what he contributes to the other horses there, and to El Lugar, and like all of these things, where if I thought about that at the time as like, oh, he was a $8,000 horse and blah, blah, blah. And I, like you said, if the genie was in front of me and I could have asked for $1 billion, but he's given me $1 billion, like more than $1 billion, because he's given me stuff that you can't buy, stuff that's
Yeah.
priceless.
And that's the wealth and the profitability of living.
Yeah.
Because you can look and money, money.
Yeah. Right.
Like, has it ever made you happy? Like, really? It might for a moment. Then you're just like, man, I've still got all the same shit. I still fucking have all these judgments of myself, and it doesn't do shit. And most people who are, the seekers of the world don't really actually care about it that much. They care way more about creation. And, so, oh, that's the thing I was going to say. If you love horses, you might want to get your ass to Elagar, because riding a horse there is not a normal horse ride. Like, riding on that property is something else. It is so unique. And also those horses. I mean, the Costa Sensei horses are just so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when we used to go riding there, and Connor Hill was living in my house in Australia, and I think he had ridden there, but I was talking to him about my horse and describing, excuse me, what it was like to ride him. And yeah, I mean, I've ridden horses all over the world, and I love, like, I will ride anywhere, but there is absolutely nothing at all like riding a horse, a Costa Sensei in Costa Rica, and let alone on this property that we're creating this amazing space for, called El Lugar. So yes, I second
True
that.
story.
Yeah.
Man, it's epic.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. I mean, that's half an hour gone as quickly as that. I wonder, like, is there anything else before we go? Like, any last comments or?
No, I don't think so. It's like, I mean, I maybe just, one of the things I've been doing lately is, one of the things that's definitely up in the world. Dane's got a call coming up. There's other facilitators doing, oh, there goes my light. How does it? There's other facilitators doing calls and stuff on relaxation. Is, what if you created the space of relaxation for you to look at what it is that you truly desire to ask for?
Yeah. Love it. Thank you so much.
And go and get your ass on a horse.
Get your ass on a horse, people.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much. And we'll post.
You're so welcome.
We'll post some links about how people can find out more, because you're traveling the world. You're basically never sitting still, rarely. You've just started a membership as well, right? Or a series?
No, I've had that for a while. Oh, actually, you know what I've got starting today is 7 calls for $35. It's called The Idiot's Guide to Relationship.
Everyone's been telling me about your singing in the shower. They're like, Sarah, have you seen Brendon's video of him singing in the shower?
Well, I actually did another video yesterday, because I was like, hey, you've probably seen the humor getting out there into the world with this topic, because it's me singing in the shower and different things like that. But I was like, hey, I actually also know that it takes a lot of vulnerability to look at the topic of sex and relationship.
Yeah.
And so this call isn't going to be about joking around about sex and relationship. Like like it could go anywhere. So I was just like, you know what? I see in my life also where I try and use humor as a way of avoiding being really vulnerable with things.
Yeah.
And so there you go. That's an invitation to that. And I got heaps of other stuff. I'm
We'll,
like,
we'll pop some links about where to find you. And if there's one thing I know about you, you'll talk about anything. So I don't, I think
right?
whatever call people get on with you, they're not going to find many filters or barriers to things. I think there's a level
I'll
of,
even sing in the shower.
yeah, there's a level of honesty and vulnerability you'll be with people where, yeah, it's very cool. So thank you again.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
being my brother. Thank you for being on my
Thank you.
podcast.
Thank you for being my sister.
Thank you for being in this world. And yeah, I'll talk to you and see you somewhere very soon. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.